I still remember the first time I climbed down into the trench during World War I. I thought war would feel glorious. Before I left home, people spoke about honor, bravery, and quick victories. But the second my boots hit the muddy floor of the trench, I realized none of them understood what it was really like. The trench was cold, cramped, and alive with noise. Mud clung to everything. My boots, my uniform, even my blanket when I tried to sleep. The walls were made from wet earth reinforced with wood and sandbags, but parts of them constantly collapsed after rain. Water filled the bottom so deeply that some nights I stood ankle deep for hours. The smell was impossible to escape. Smoke from artillery mixed with sweat, damp clothes, rotten food, and sometimes the scent of death drifting from no man's land. After a while, I stopped noticing it unless fresh air reached us for a moment. Every morning before sunrise, officers shouted for "Stand to." We climbed onto the firing step with rifles ready, staring into the darkness toward the enemy trenches, somewhere across the field. My hands would shake from cold and fear while I waited for an attack that might never come. Most of the time, life in the trench was endless waiting. I cleaned my rifle over and over just to stay busy. I wrote letters home pretending everything was fine because I didn't want my family to worry. Food came in small portions, hard biscuits that nearly broke my teeth, canned meat, weak tea, and watery soup. Sometimes rats ran over us while we slept. They were enormous from feeding on scraps and bodies left on the battlefield. At night, I could hear scratching beside my head. The shelling was the worst part. Sometimes the warning came too late. 1 second the trench was quiet, and the next the sky exploded. The ground shook violently beneath me while dirt rained from above. I remember crouching inside a dugout, covering my ears while explosions thundered outside nonstop for hours. Every blast made me think the next one would bury us alive. After weeks in the trenches, I stopped feeling normal. Loud sounds made my heart race. I barely slept. Even when things were quiet, I felt tense, waiting for disaster. But strangely, there were still moments that felt human. My friends and I joked to keep ourselves sane. We played cards under dim lantern light. Someone always tried singing badly to make everyone laugh. One soldier traded half his chocolate for dry socks like it was treasure. Tiny comforts became the best parts of life. Then came the morning of the attack. Rain poured into the trench while officers passed the order down the line. I remember gripping my rifle so tightly my knuckles hurt. The whistles blew. I climbed over the top. The moment I entered no man's land, chaos surrounded me. Machine guns rattled across the field. Shells exploded nearby, throwing mud and smoke into the air. Men shouted, stumbled, and disappeared into craters. I ran forward because stopping felt more dangerous than moving. I can still remember the sound most clearly. Not the explosions, but the fear in everyone's voices. When the attack finally ended, we had gained almost nothing. Just a few meters of destroyed ground at a terrible cost. That was trench warfare, risking hundreds of lives for pieces of mud. By the time I left the trenches weeks later, I looked older than when I arrived. My uniform was ripped, my boots worn down, and my face thinner from exhaustion. But the biggest change was inside my mind. The trenches taught me that war was not adventure or glory. It was survival.